As a Kiwi, there are not too many tracks that I can consider home court advantage, but Bathurst Mount Panorama is surely the exception. Decades of watching motor racing at this circuit has given me some unique perspective of this track, and so it's with equal parts nerves and excitement that I take on the circuit for the very first time on iRacing. Of course, Mount Panorama always delivers the action, and in my case, all the way to the very last lap. So let's dive into the races and see how I got on. Now, I do unfortunately need to start this video off with some stories of trials and tribulations. Starting at this first race off the pole position and leading early on, we are here fighting late in the 40-minute race for the back end of the podium. A mistake by me into turn 2 puts me under pressure coming up to the cutting, and the Honda behind goes for a gap that was really never going to exist. A nudge on the rear bumper sends me into the outside wall. The consequences are truly disastrous there, and just an unfortunate moment. He's just mistimed it. He's looking for the opportunity to get by after the mistake, and it really has destroyed my race. He's seen his mistake, he's let me by, but with the amount of rear end damage that I had, finishing this one off was not going to be possible, and a first opportunity at a strong result goes a waste. And then a very embarrassing moment here. Again, we're off the pole position on lap 1, trying to get this race underway, utilising this pace that we have in this BMW, but unfortunately all out of shape coming out of the cutting, grabbing that inside curb at turn 5 and pitching the car into a slide, letting the entire field come by us. So as I said, there is speed in this BMW, but Bathurst is certainly teaching me some hard lessons. The question now is, can we put an entire race together and try and nab some decent results? So let's move on to our first race to show you here this week. We are door card number 19, second to last of this pretty strong split one early morning race here at Bathurst. Now there are a couple of 6,500 I-rated drivers in this field, so to qualify in 10th place felt like a pretty strong qualifying performance. We get the green light and we are underway, charging down to Hull Corner. With a bit of space around us, we're going to have a nice clean turn 1, not so much for the Mustang up in front. That allows us to jump up one position on the grid. Charging down Mountain Straight now, we've got the Porsche behind, 3,500 I rating for that driver. We're going to run a very defensive line down into turn 2. Going around the outside is not easy, and a couple of cars there do end up very, very wide at turn 2, so we pick up a couple more spots once again. Now into the cutting, now being very careful on these cold tyres, a little bit more gentle on the throttle application out of here, learning from those previous races. And we're going to try and settle into a nice groove here on lap 1. Porsche in front, just getting away a little bit there, but understandably I'm a little bit cautious. Just want to get around these first few laps, see how the pace is, and then start pushing things. Over the top of the hill now, looking into Skyline, we're going to modulate the brake pedal down here, down to second gear, hug this inside wall before dropping down into the dipper, hard on the accelerator out the other side, the run down to Forest Elbow. Really tricky corner this one, and we get it all wrong there. Just grabbing the brake with a bit too much lock on the turn. We just managed to gather it up, but we are now under attack once again from this door card number 5 Porsche. An Australian driver in that car, so he knows this track probably just as well as I do. So we're just looking to run a nice defensive line. Don't want to give this position away too early as we come into the chase. Looking for a nice deep braking zone here just to fend him off, and we absolutely do that. Just grab the curb there. We come into a little bit hot into the chase. Out the other side, cars in front almost looking side by side into the final corner. That's going to bring us back into this battle. Hard on the brakes, missing this quick curb on the inside there, out the other side nicely, and we are underway here in 7th position of this strong field race. The action does continue on lap 2. You see a bit of a gap forming behind the Mustang in 10th position there. So we're in the lead battle group, and once again door card number 5 right on the rear bumper, even getting a little 0x contact as we go down Mountain Straight. Once again, I'm running a defensive line on the inside, do not want to get stuck on the outside of turn 2, and that's going to mean we hold on to this position through this turn. Trying to get a nice exit here, and I feel like I'm pretty safe as we come up to the cutting, but that Porsche driver behind, really nice move, lunged down the inside to the cutting turn 4. We see it happening, we let him by, no point trying to fight that one. This car in front now definitely has a fair bit of speed. We're definitely under attack once again though from the car behind, door card number 9 BMW. In these higher split races, there is absolutely nowhere to hide at all. Now up in front, a moment for the Mustang that was in 3rd place, actually catching the wall at the grate there, and he is off the road at McPhillamy Park, grabbing us up back to that 7th position. Now an opportunity to fight back on the Porsche. He was slow coming out of the chase. I'm on the outside into the final corner, not somewhere I really want to be, but didn't have much choice there, and that does leave us high and wide out of the final turn, and that gives the run for the BMW car 9 to come down the inside into turn 1. Once again, not much point fighting this one, trying to hook in nice and quickly, get into the slipstream with door 10 Mustang now behind me, and trying to just hold on to the back of this lead group. Into the final corner on the next lap, and even more drama. Number 5 Porsche down the inside of number 20 runs him off the road, and that allows both BMWs in front and myself to get by that car as well. So we are picking up a few places here, being sensible with our driving, just trying to stay out of the mess, out of the battles that I know I can't fight, and holding on now to these speedier drivers. Behind though, that car 20 had a bit of pace, was right on the rear bumper, and while I got very close to the wall at the grate, he went one more. You see on the replay here behind, catching that wall very, very hard, slow on the next turns as he has steering damage. So that opens up the gap behind and allows me to be a little bit more eyes forward as we head into the last half of this race. So far in this one, I was really enjoying the pace that I was able to produce in this BMW. I really enjoy these higher split races with these faster drivers in them. It's a really good way to test where I'm at certain circuits. Behind though, I was being caught by car number 3, 4,800 iRacing, and well, he was definitely showing his strength, absolutely catching me at a fair rate of knots coming down the hill there. Just so much more confidence in that Lamborghini versus myself, and as we come out of Forest Elbow, he's all over the rear bumper, catching nearly over a second over the hip mountain, and we decide the best thing to do is to move over, ease off the throttle, and let him have this place without too much of a fight. Trying to defend versus someone like this was never going to be a good option, and the very next lap, well, my decision kind of paid off. Car 5 down the inside of the McLaren, the Lamborghini trying to follow him through, and just on the grip limit there, makes a small touch on the McLaren, and he spins off to that outside of the circuit at the chase there. So the position that I gave away quickly came back to me, and we were left in 7th position once again, trying to chase down these drivers ahead. Despite the speed that Porsche showed at the start of the race, by this stage he wasn't that far up the road, just 1.6 seconds at this stage. So I had found a really good pace, a really good rhythm, and particularly this lap, this was my fastest lap of this race, I was really starting to utilize some of that speed that I had. Behind, another drama for the Ford, might have killed it in the rear vision mirror, but that left a really big gap behind, and it was going to now mean all eyes forward, no pressure at all from any cars coming up for the last part of this race, just concentrating, getting my brake markers, getting these turn-ins, particularly down here at Forest Elbow, really tricky corner, so easy to run wide there, but I was finding a groove, something that was working for me. Coming down Conrod Straight now, fastest piece of motor racing circuit in Australia, over the brow of the hill here, such a cool piece of racetrack Always love driving this on the sim. Through the chase flat and nice and deep on the brakes, these fixed setups, lots more downforce than in the sprint open setup equivalent, so nice and deep on the brakes. And now this last stopping zone into Murray's Corner, and so you can go nice and deep. You just want to keep just enough brake to allow the car to turn, miss that curb out the other side. And this bottom part of the track, I certainly found I had a bit of confidence with. A 2-minute 4.62 was a good strong racing lap for me in these fixed setups. So again, I was just finding pace, following these faster drivers certainly helped. On the last lap here, we were doing what we could, but ultimately these guys in front were just that little bit faster. Coming down the hill, we're going to play it nice and cautious here, again with that gap to the cars behind, and ultimately I found that a 7th position in a strength of field of this type was certainly going to be a good solid result, particularly after the few dramas I had not only in the races before this one, but in the week before as well. Round through the final corner of this 20-minute race to secure that 7th position. You can see the reaction, what it means to get a decent result like that. It felt almost as good as a win, if I'm being fair. It gave me a lot of confidence for the next one. So let's jump into qualifying for the GT Sprint Series event. Coming into Hull Corner, 2nd gear, not grabbing too much of that curb, nicely on the power for the run down Mountain Straight. Now this race had a very interesting final lap, so definitely stick around for that. But the big difference between the fixed versus the Sprint Series was track temperature. Over 50 degrees track temp for these Sprint Series events, and that made things very slippery indeed. Coming out of Griffin's Bend, 4th gear on the way up to the cutting, through the kink, hard on the brakes, 2nd gear, use the hill to slow the car and tuck right into that inside wall. Now underneath the tree as we come up towards Reed Park, a little bit of a lift to make sure the front of the car does turn, a little bit understeery, particularly in the opening laps here. Once again, as we go through the crate down towards McPhillamy Park, just getting that tucked in towards the wall, missing that outside curb as much as possible. And now over Skyline, down the hill, 3rd gear, 2nd gear, tucking it towards the wall, down into the dipper, hard on the accelerator out the other side for the run down to Forest Elbow. Short shift to 3rd, modulate this brake down, so easy to understeer here, just getting the car turned, missing the wall on the outside, take a breath, coming down Conrod Straight. Now the other difference between the fixed setup and the open setup, with the Go setups that I was using, the car was running a little less wing, so a faster straight line speed down Conrod Straight, getting up to 6th gear a bit earlier, and with the track temperature needing to have a little bit earlier brake marker for the end of Conrod Straight. It took a little bit of getting used to. I do most of my practice with the open setup before doing some fixed setup races, so I was relatively used to it. This final corner as well, just about getting it stopped and turned, but we're going to come across the line for a 2-minute 4.38, and that was my fastest lap of the weekend. Really happy with that one. Provisional pole, but we are going to start this race from 4th position. So ready to take the green light here. The car in P2 did not take the grid for the start of this one, so that should elevate us straight up into a podium position. We jump away through the final corner, a little bit of 0x contact with the green Porsche there on the inside, but we do have space behind to have a nice clean run at turn number 1. Getting through here okay, right under the rear wing a little bit, and an incident behind. It's been a true privilege to start these races from near the front of the grid. It certainly made lap number 1 a little bit simpler for me. Up Mountain Straight, 52 degrees is the track temperature for this one. With the cold tyres, it makes for a very slippery run up the mountain first off, so we've been trying to practice that cold tyre run and get it a little bit better after the mishaps we had in that earlier race. To the cutting now, in towards the wall, nice and tight there, and we're going to ease onto the throttle nicely out of there. The Porsche getting away a little bit on this opening lap. That car had very good cold tyre performance, I noticed, through the races, and we were just doing our best to get these tyres warmed up and get into a groove. Down to Forest Elbow on lap number 1, we missed the apex a little bit, right on exit, missing the wall thankfully, but that's going to put us under pressure from car number 8 behind the white BMW there, trying once again for a nice late deep braking into the chase, and just about overdo it, get a little bit of grass and a track cut, and that's going to mean a slow exit, and we're going to have to be defensive into the final corner. Thankfully that works out for us, but we are getting a really big hurry up from that car number 8, and we're really going to need to find our groove in this one quickly to not let the leaders get away from us. Jump ahead to lap number 3, and we were starting to find that groove, catching up towards that green Porsche a little bit with still plenty of pressure behind from car number 8. Now a car number 1 up there in the lead was certainly establishing themselves as the favourite for this race with some tremendous speed, so it looked like it was going to be a bit of a podium battle here as we get pressured down the mountain. Now the BMW behind certainly had an advantage here up and over the hill, and it seems that my setup really did benefit me down through last sector and sector number 1. A decent exit out of Forest Elbow would always open up a little bit of a gap come down towards the chase, and that was going to have to be the ploy of this race to keep these other cars behind us tries to snatch this P3. Now it's a decent lap here on lap number 3. We're going to come across the line to do a 2-minute 4.67, which is provisionally the fastest lap of the race to this point, but as we got further into the race, despite a string of 2-minute 4s, we were getting caught by car number 4, making a bit of a 4-car battle here for the back 2 positions of the podium. Now you can see that white BMW looking left and right as we come down the hill. It's a tricky place to have an advantage because there isn't really anywhere to pass unless you get a really good run and a really aggressive dive into Forest Elbow, and considering my car had an advantage through the final part of the lap, it sort of took away a lot of the passing opportunities. 204.1 for the leader, now really starting to show his speed over nearly 5 seconds up the road at this point, but with 18 minutes to go and a bit of a change of position behind with car 4 now up in that 4th position putting pressure on, we were still really locked into a battle here. No one was making big mistakes, but everyone was going to drive as good as they can to hold on to position here. Coming down the hill once again, you see that BMW car number 4 has a similar advantage to car number 8 as well. So for me, it was all about getting Forest Elbow right, getting ourselves a good exit and taking away that pressure. In fact, in the mirrors, there's going to be another change of position behind with car 8 fighting back against car 4 down Conrod Straight. And up ahead, we were going to have some other things to deal with in this race with some lap traffic ahead, cars that have taken pit stops, some with damage, and we were going to be a few laps before our pit stops were going to take place. So we're going to have to deal with this traffic as well, just throwing another element into this race. Coming up Mountain Straight on lap number 12, and we were going to get to the first of those back markers. It's car 13, the Porsche. He goes down the inside at turn number 2. We're going to tuck in and try and follow him through, hoping this Honda here is going to let us by. Unfortunately, a slightly delayed exit for myself. He make it very, very awkward coming into turn 3. Lots of flashbacks to that first race I showed you and the incident going towards the cutting, but thankfully he eases out of the throttle and we're just able to hold it on around the outside. What that meant was that the cars behind got caught behind that Honda coming over the top of the mountain, taking a little bit of pressure off myself with those cars as we come down towards the chase now on lap number 12. Overdoing it a little bit on this lap, and more so for car number 8 behind, going very wide at the chase, trying to make up that ground he lost going over the top of the hill. And so a change of position once again behind, but an opening gap sort of took the pressure off, and as we approach the pit stop cycle, we're feeling a little bit more comfortable here in this 3rd position. Now, the lap number 14, this is the lap that we will be coming into pit. The car in P2, managing to get by this back marker here. I'm a little bit too far away to follow him through. At this stage, we had a clear run to the cars behind us, so I was hoping that this back marker wasn't going to hold us up too much over the run into this pit stop and close the gap too much to those cars behind, as I was enjoying that slight advantage that I had on car number 4 behind. Coming down the hill now, and we're just being a little bit cautious here, trying to make sure we don't make any mistakes. The car in front ran a little bit wide, but he's not holding me up too much. However, car 4 behind is on an absolutely blistering lap coming down the hill, gaining over a second on us with some aggressive driving, and he's right out to that outside wall on Forest Elbow as well, so he's pushing very, very hard to close this gap. Still down into the chase, we had to follow through this McLaren who's a lap down, and that meant that it was going to be a much tighter entry into the pit lane with cars in front and behind. Needing to get this one right, which fortunately we do. Very happy with that pit stop entry. And after the stops, no mishaps from anyone, no missed pit boxes, etc. So we're all going to come out pretty much line astern and set up a grand finale here with these 4 cars fighting it out for the last 2 positions on the podium. So I did promise you a grandstand finish, and let's see how it unfolds on this cold tyre lap after the pit stop. Again, we have not changed tyres, but the cooler temps make things a little bit trickier. We've done a decent job of it though, and we're holding position here. Behind, it's car number 8 who's dropped away a little bit from this pack on these first few laps after the pit stop. So it's turning into a 3-car battle for these last 2 spots on the podium, and everyone is quite simply pushing as hard as they can here. Down into Forest Elbow, that white BMW continues to have an advantage down the hill, and despite my better laps, we're not quite able to get any closer to this green Porsche. Like I said, I was really enjoying the intensity of it. We are still doing 2-minute 4s even in this late stage of the race, and as we come through to set what I think is the final lap of the race, the green Porsche ahead makes his first mistake all race long. A little bit wide and a slow exit out of turn 2. He keeps it off the wall, but the small margin he had disappears. We're all over the back bumper. We get a yellow flag as well for a car stopped on track. That does clear by the time we get to it, but this is probably the closest I've been to this Porsche all race long. Now he does a good job over the top of the mountain, and what I'm really starting to look at this part of the lap is where the leader is on track. Coming out of the chase with only 10 seconds on the clock, I'm pretty confident that he is not going to make it an extra lap in this race. So we're going to come down towards the finish line here, and we get a white flag, which I'm pretty sure shows me I'm on my final lap, through turn 2 and come across that finish line for a P3. However, we're going to ease off the throttle, believing it's the end of the race here, and then notice the green Porsche is continuing on. I want to give him my congratulations for a good race, then to realize that we are still racing. This is actually the final lap, and that leader must have got over the finish line with barely milliseconds on the clock still. So with big pressure now, the gap to that number 4 BMW completely diminished, and remember, this BMW behind has an advantage over the top of the mountain. So not only is this a final lap fighting it out for the back of the podium, but it's going to need to be one of my best laps at this final moment. Coming up through under the tree into Reed Park, we're pushing quite simply as hard as we dare. Obviously the gap to that Porsche has grown out a little bit as we come into McPhillamy Park, really trying to get the front of the car turned, and that white Porsche actually showing the nose towards Skyline. Very risky place to try and pass, so he's been sensible with his speed and putting the pressure on. A solid run down the hill. There was some good aggression from myself there, got it right as we head towards Forest Elbow, and one final tricky braking zone to get right here and out the other side, and we feel like we have taken away that little bit of pressure Porsche coming towards the line. However, the drama continues as the leader is slow on Conrod Straight. That's right, you can see on the Delta, closing that gap to the leader. He is running out of fuel on this final lap. A true disaster for him. He had all the speed in the world and had all the gap in the world to slow up and make sure that he would get across the line to finish the race on the previous lap. But a bit of a mishap, I think, not working out where the finish line is. Actually, is under the bridge as we come to the line here. But it meant that the three of us are now all in the podium positions coming into the final corner. No final opportunity to try and take the win off this Porsche. As we come underneath the bridge, there's the finish line, and we are actually going to snatch a P2 finishing position right on the final lap there. A truly dramatic way to finish this very intense 40-minute race. Congratulations to the Porsche on his victory. Thank you to those BMWs for a really fun, intense race. It produced some of my best laps here at Bathurst, and the reaction says it all. What a great finish. So I promised it, action all the way to the last lap here at Bathurst, and I've got to say that I was pretty happy with the speed that I found in my BMW. Of course, I do feel like I let my first GT3 win slip away from me this week, but some solid podium positions and some good finishes did get me over 2,500 iRacing for the very first time. Of course, guys, let me know in the comments, what did you think of those races? What did you think about my driving? And let me know, what sort of adventures have you had this week at Bathurst? If you're new around here, please consider subscribing to the channel and give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it. I truly am appreciating all of the support you guys are giving these videos recently. I cannot thank you enough. As always, guys, race hard, stay positive. We'll see you soon in the next one. Cheers.